What is up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're here at Lake Julian Disc Golf Course for a new disc review. This new disc comes from Innova, so I don't know why. I should be excited about this. It seems like it would be something that I would like to throw. I don't know if it's gonna find a place in my bag or not. We're gonna find that out today. So we have the Star Racer. I already did a video about the Charger, which is their 13-speed -1-2 disc. It's basically a straighter, almost beat-in Boss. This is 12-6 and -1-2. So it's a 12-speed version. We'll show the profile here in just a second because it's got something extremely unique about it. To compare, I have a Fission Time-Lapse and a Lux Vapor Enigma. The Enigma is from Discmania and it is 12.5 -1-2 versus the 12.6 -1-2. So I have a couple of comparisons to do, and let's start tossing. So here's the time lapse. This is not the one out of my bag because I wanted to have more of a true comparison, and this one is new and the other ones are pretty new. So Fission time lapse, very domey on top, even domier than the normal Neutron time lapses. Has a nice sloping rim, and I think this actually is a little bit lower of a parting line than the other time lapses. So that's why this one, it's in Fission, it's a little bit lighter, and it feels like it has a slightly lower parting line. So that's why it's easier to flip up and throw for, if you're not Simon Lizotte. Then the Enigma, similar, a little bit less dome, so it's a little bit flatter on top, and it feels like the parting line on the Enigma is about the same. And then let's compare the time lapse to the Racer. Very similar. The Racer has that old school Innova rim shape on top, where it goes out a little bit higher and then it drops down sharper. So it's about the same. It just almost it feels like it's got the tiniest little bit of a bubble there. The interesting thing about the Racer, though, is to make it an easier to throw destroyer. To get the parting line lower, guess what they did? They basically just took the rim and pushed more plastic down below. So now it has a lower parting line. So it's very possible that this is just a destroyer with a slightly lower parting line. This I got, don't normally hear a heartbeat from Star Plastic. This is 169 versus 168. And the Enigma is 175, but it's in Lux Vapor, so it kind of flies like a slightly lighter disc. I'm going to throw all three of these today, starting at the mid pad for hole 12. Oh, they moved the basket. All right. We're going to see if we can get to the corner, if not around the corner, but first three throws out of the car, we'll see what happens. I'm going to go time-lapse Enigma, and then we're going to throw the Racer for the first time ever. Oh, that's not coming out. Those bushes over there, hopefully I can find it. Very similar flight, the Enigma and the Racer, which I kind of expected. They're promoted as basically the same idea. The Enigma is just a straighter DD3, which is Discmania's destroyer, and the Racer is a slightly straighter destroyer. So it makes sense that they would fly very, very similar. I'm interested to see which one went further, because the Racer says it has more glide and it's a touch domier. So we'll see. Hopefully I can find this time lapse in all of the weeds. Enigma versus Racer. It's very possible that I threw the Enigma slightly lower because I feel like it was a touch lower. So that could have been the height I threw it at. It could also be the glide. We have more holes to figure out, and hopefully we'll be able to come up with some good conclusions by the end of today. So Julian doesn't have too many really good distance driver holes. Ooh. Look what's walking around. That's cool. So like Julian doesn't really have too many good distance driver holes where you actually need your distance drivers. Nothing's quite open enough or long enough. So this hole and the next hole, we're gonna throw soft forehand and then hard forehand on the next hole. And I wanna see how they hold up to a forehand, because if I have a distance driver in my bag, it's going to be both backhand and forehand. And these 3 discs will have a possibility of going really, really, really far both ways. So we're gonna test it out. You're coming right at me, dude. I mean, I'm not gonna hurt you, and you're really cute, but you came all the way over here. Don't you gotta love nature? Okay, so we're going to continue the rotating 2-order Enigma, Racer, and then time lapse. All those were really good shots. The Racer was a little off, but my release was off. So we're gonna get to really see them fly on the next hole, but I think they have enough torque resistance to handle a power throw or a power shot without just flipping and rolling all the way completely uncontrollably. They're gonna be controlled, but it's not like throwing a beefy destroyer or like throwing a Firebird. It's gonna be more of the, you might get a little bit of a flip up or maybe even some drift, but they're gonna go a lot further straight and they're not gonna hyzer off as much. So while the -1.3 distance drivers tend to be the most popular, and it's what the pros end up throwing the most, it's because it's reliable and overstable, but only if you could throw it really fast. The problem you get with a lot of pros is or a lot of AMs, is they just can't throw that hard. They can't throw that fast. They're never gonna get a destroyer up to the speed it needs to go at to turn and then fade. So something like a -1.2, something that's a little bit softer, it's a little bit straighter, it's going to give you, because it doesn't have it wanting to fight and dump so hard, it's going to give it more glide and push on whatever line you throw it on before it starts to finish, and it's not just dumping out of the air, which is why I really love the time lapse. Even though it says it's a -1.3, if you were to flex it, it's going to finish almost straight. A lot straighter than like a destroyer. But since I'm throwing a lot more hyzers right now, I'm not getting as much as I thought I was going to with these time lapses. So they're great, they're amazing, and they fly so far. But I think I need something a touch straighter with just a little bit less finish. So I think either the Racer or the Enigma might be going into my bag. And the time lapse, I love the time lapse. And there's just really no holes here that calls for that much overstability pushing that far. So we're gonna see how they fly here, handle on a forehand. I'm gonna pop these all out. We're gonna go Racer and then time lapse Enigma. It's a little bit of a tailwind. So if I throw them on hyzer, they may not get all the way to flat. I'm gonna try to throw them basically as flat as possible and firm, but I'm not gonna juice them. So we'll see what happens. Didn't really pop up all the way to flat. Was too much hyzer. See how that one flipped up a lot flatter before it started to fade? But then when it did fade, it faded pretty firm. The -1-3 discs, when you beat them in so that you can actually get them to flip up, they're gonna give you more to the right and then to the left. Doesn't matter if you're right-handed, left-handed, forehand, backhand, it's going to give you more turn and then it's going to give you more fade versus a -1-2, which may not give you quite as much turn because you're able to flip it up to flat from brand new. I'm really loving that Enigma though. I might bag an Enigma, especially in Lux Vapor. We'll talk about that later. As far as the Racer is concerned, it's a great flyer on a forehand. Now let's go see how far we can get it to go on a backhand. So the Racer, the Enigma, and the Fission time lapse are kind of the people's destroyer, the people's DD3, and the people's time lapse. They're gonna give you the same flight that you see the pros throwing. It's just, you can actually achieve the flight. It's pretty cool. At this point in time, I think the Fission, well at least, yeah, Fission time lapse might stay in the bag, but I might pull out the Neutron time lapse and stick either the Racer or the Enigma in here. And we'll see how that performs for a tournament or two, but I don't really throw the Neutron time lapse because it's not really that windy here. And I don't need that much overstability, and I can only throw it like 300 feet. So I can throw a putter the same distance and have more control over how it lands and where it sits. I don't know what I'm gonna do with the Neutron time lapses. I don't throw them enough to beat them in. So we'll see what happens. But this Star Racer is flying pretty amazing. Let's see how it handles on a backhand. I didn't throw it on backhand because with the tailwind on the last hole, there was a chance of pushing way too far. I don't like that chance. But here the chances are, if you push way too far, oh no, maybe you missed the Mando. So you'll at least find your disc again. Back to the original T order, we're going time lapse first, Fission time lapse. The main issue I have with the time lapse, I think, is that slightly plus rim. You don't get it as much, or you don't notice it as much with the Fission plastic, but that plus rim makes a slightly wider rim disc feel easier to throw. But sometimes if I need to really grip onto it, I have trouble releasing it at the right time. And I think that's where most of the problem comes with when I try to throw any overmold disc that's faster than like a 9 or 10 speed. I have trouble getting the cleanest of releases or consistent release. So we're gonna see if we can get a good rip here with this one. Yeah, that flipped up and turned. So I think the Fission time lapse is great if you're like 3 miles an hour slower than my arm speed. My arm speed is just a tiny bit too much for the Fission and not quite enough for the Neutron. So time lapses are great. I don't know if it's gonna be what stays in my bag for a long time though. I mean, if the short pin was there, I might have aced it. That was right over the top of it. Little bit high for the true like pushing shot, but that's what the pros look like when they throw destroyers. Nice little stand up, little bit of drift over to the right, good reliable fade. Let's see if we get the same thing from this Racer. No, it stayed in the air for a long time. Okay. One of those was way too high, one of those was way too low. I'm gonna go collect all 3 of them and we're gonna give you more shots today. Yeah, we're throwing for them again because I didn't get a good comparison between the Enigma and the Racer, but we're gonna throw all 3 because it's fun. The goal here is to try to throw it, just pop it firm enough that I can get it to flip up and ride. Maybe get a little bit of a drift to the right But for the most part, I just want it to ride really, really straight before it dumps. And so we're gonna try that with all 3 of these. And so the goal isn't to throw max distance, but I think if I just throw it firm controlled, I think I get more distance than if I throw really, really hard. So we're gonna go firm controlled and see if we can get them to at least stand up. Almost identical shots. Good bit lower, and it just pushed straighter because the height that I gave the Innova is what allowed it to kind of drop off. They both flew very similar to about the same point, but at that point the racer was fading into the ground instead of fading into the hyzer. So, you know, it's all right. Let's go with this and try to recreate the same shots because those 2 shots were really close. Hopefully I can recreate it with the time lapse. Okay, so what I've determined is that the fission time lapse is actually a tiny bit flippier, but because it has a time lapse rim, it's still gonna fade just as hard as a normal time lapse. It's just gonna do it way, 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 way later after you flipped it up to flat or gotten into turn and drift. The time lapse is great. I think what I'm gonna do is actually I'm gonna leave the fission time lapse in my bag for forehands or when I need something to actually turn. But when I need that straight pushing hyzer shot, I think I'm actually gonna go with the Innova. A couple of reasons. One, I've thrown the Innova, I threw it once yesterday, and that video will be coming out actually later because I need to get the racer video out before the other video. So I've thrown the Innova once, and then 12, 15, 16, 18, and 18. So I've thrown it 6 times and I have not thrown a bad shot with it. And even on 18, it was basically copy and paste one shot to the next. The racer is amazing. It has a very, very similar flight path. I just am not quite as consistent with that, or I wasn't today. I think the racer is going to be great for a lot of people. I'm still stuck on the Lux Vapor plastic though. I love Lux Vapor. So having one of my main distance bomber drivers being my favorite plastic of all time, I think that's the main reason I'm pulling towards the Innova. The racer tends to go a touch straighter, touch further, but the racer is in between. I think it's in between the Innova and the time lapse, or the fission time lapse. So neutron time lapse coming out of my bag, Lux Vapor Innova going in, and if I ever need more stability, I have some PDs and a cap wrap. So I don't think I'm going to be too screwed on disc choices or what I want to throw. If you're looking to pick up a bomber distance driver and the Wraith is just a little bit too stable, the Destroyer is a little bit too stable, I think this racer actually flies straighter than a Wraith. It's really good. This is brand new. The first throws I've ever thrown with a racer, you just saw just now. It's a great disc. Definitely go pick up a racer if you're looking for max distance bomber shots and you're not looking to beat in a Destroyer. But I think it's actually going to give you more options than having a beat-in Destroyer, because the Destroyer, once it's beat in to be that straight, is going to give you more play right and left and back to the right, or whichever way you happen to be throwing it. The racer is going to be a much more aligned drive. It's going to give you the distance, it's going to give you the push that you're looking for and the stability to keep it on its line, but it's not going to give you big, huge sloping turns as much as a Destroyer would. So Racer's a great disc. Innova, you did a great job. I'm not the biggest fan of the modern Innova plastic, but if I ever lose the Innova, I still have a Racer that flies basically the same, and I just need a couple more throws to make sure I'm dialed in with the release point, And I mean, it's a great disc. Go pick up a racer. They have a huge stack of them over at Another Round. If you're looking for something a little bit flippier, they just got in a new restock of MVP, so they have stock stamp fission time lapses, just a big old stack of them. So if you're looking for a time lapse, go get one of those. If you're looking for a racer, go get one of those. Good luck finding a Lux Vapor Enigma, which is my main concern about putting that in my bag. But like I have already said, if I happen to lose it, I have a racer sitting around. So if you enjoy content like this, make sure to like the video. If you want to see something new, make sure to comment that down below, and please make sure to subscribe. It helps you out with the subscriber only giveaways. It definitely helps me out. And until next time, see you out on the course.